It was just a porch light. Round, frosted glass. A little metal base that rattled in strong wind. Mounted just above the screen door with 4 old screws and a stubborn layer of rust around the edges. But in our neighborhood, back in the late 1950s, it was the first light that came on without anyone flipping a switch. My father bought it from a traveling salesman who came through town once a year, the kind who wore polished shoes even on gravel driveways and called everyone friend. He carried a black case with all sorts of gadgets lined up like cigars. Doorbells that played melodies. A toaster with a built-in timer. A fan that turned on when you clapped, though it never really worked unless you clapped so hard your palms hurt. But that light, it worked. It turned on by itself. Every evening, just as the sun dipped behind the water tower, before the cicadas started in earnest and before the milkman's last route, the bulb would glow to life. Not a flicker. Not a delay. Just a soft bloom of light like the house had remembered something. I was 11 the first time I saw it happen. I was sitting on the steps with a grape popsicle, watching the tar bubble between the cracks in the street. The smell of cut grass still hung in the air, and someone was playing a harmonica 2 houses down. It was the hour when moms started calling kids in, and dads appeared on porches with rolled sleeves and tired shoulders. And then it happened. The light above our door blinked once. And stayed on. No one touched anything. It just knew. I remember looking over my shoulder at the empty screen door, half expecting to see someone there. But there wasn't. The house had done it all on its own. From that day on, it became a kind of magic. Our neighbors noticed. A few tried to copy it, though most couldn't afford it. Some joked about it, saying our house was too smart for its own good. But mostly, people were curious. Kids on bikes would slow down as they passed, eyes trained on that little glass bulb. Sometimes it clicked on just as someone looked up, and that was enough to make them whisper. To us, it was just part of the evening. We'd hear the soft click inside the wall, like the house clearing its throat. Then the bulb would glow. Sometimes catching a moth in mid-flight. Sometimes lighting up the folded newspaper left on the steps. Sometimes just sitting there, a quiet witness to everything we didn't say. It became our signal. The light meant the day was winding down. That the front door would stay unlocked for a little while longer. That it was okay to sit on the porch in slippers. That someone might still be coming home. My mother treated it like any other appliance. Wiped the glass once a week with vinegar and newspaper, checked the wiring every spring. But my father, he had a different look when it came on. He'd glance at it as if it reminded him of something far away, a different life, maybe. One he didn't talk much about. He'd returned from the war quieter than most men. Built things. Fixed things. But rarely spoke about before. He liked that the light didn't need asking. Didn't need flipping. Didn't need reminding. On evenings when I came home late from ball practice or stayed too long riding bikes with Tom Miller down by the river bend, I'd see it from the corner, the light already on, porch empty, screen door moving gently in the breeze. I never told them, but it made me feel safer. Like the house was still awake. Still waiting. Seasons changed. Autumn brought wood smoke and early darkness. Leaves crunched beneath our shoes, and the bulb came on earlier each week. One night I watched it turn on just as the last light left the sky, timed like it was watching the sunset too. In winter, the snow made the glow look deeper. When the power lines groaned under ice and the streets emptied by 6, our light still clicked on. Sometimes a little delayed, cold did that, but it came. I'd watch it from the couch, nose pressed to the frosted glass of the window, counting how long it took after the sky went dark. Every night it worked. Every night it remembered. Even in the years when the rest of the neighborhood caught up, when automatic lights became common, and motion sensors turned front yards into science fiction, ours felt different. Maybe because it was first. Maybe because it had never failed. When I went off to college, my dad packed two things in the box he handed me as I left: a flashlight and a bulb, the same model used in that porch light. He didn't say anything about it. He didn't need to. Years later, when I came home to visit with kids of my own, the light was still there. The same fixture. Same warm glow. My son once asked if we could get one for our house. Said he liked how it just knew. I smiled. Told him we'd see. The first time I came home and the light didn't turn on, I stopped at the edge of the walkway. The porch was dark. The air was warm, late spring, and the trees were starting to shake off their pollen. There was no storm. No outage. Nothing wrong, really. Just darkness. For a second, I thought I had come to the wrong house. It felt unfamiliar, like coming home to a friend's house after they've repainted the walls. I stood there with my hand on the gate, not quite ready to open it. Then I saw the bulb sitting there, exactly where it had always been. Still intact. Just quiet. Inside, Dad was sitting at the table with a pile of manuals. Mom was slicing apples in the kitchen. "It didn't come on," I said. My voice sounded strange in that room. Dad nodded slowly. "The sensor's going. It's old." He said it like he was talking about something else. The next day he tried to fix it, took it apart, cleaned the socket, adjusted the timer like he'd done a dozen times before. It worked once. Then not again. "It's fine," he said. "We can just flip it by hand." But it wasn't the same. That light had known. It had clicked on like it was keeping a promise. Flipping it manually made it just another bulb. A few months later, after a short illness, my dad passed away. Quietly. Like everything else he did. After the funeral, people came and went, leaving pies, flowers, handshakes that lasted too long. I stayed late that night, helping Mom pack up the garage and sort tools he hadn't used in years. Just before I left, I walked out to the porch. The sun was gone, and the sky had turned that deep navy color that makes every house look like it's holding its breath. I reached for the switch by the door, hesitated, and walked back down the steps without touching it. Let the porch stay dark that night. Just once. A week later, Mom called. "I think it's time we replaced the whole fixture," she said. I drove over that Saturday. We didn't say much, just stood on the porch together, looking at the old light. The glass was yellowed now. There was a small crack along the rim. I unscrewed it carefully, like removing something from a photograph. We replaced it with a new one. Same shape. Same placement. Just newer. And with a motion sensor this time, not a timer. "Technology," I said with a half smile. Mom nodded. But neither of us said what we were thinking. It's not really the same. Still, the new light worked. It turned on when we walked up the steps. It glowed gently when we stood still long enough. But it didn't click on before we arrived. It didn't anticipate us. It just reacted. Like everything else does now. Years passed. The house became Mom's alone. Then, eventually, mine. After she passed, I kept everything simple. Left the porch as it was. Didn't paint. Didn't change the mailbox. But I did one thing. I found an old box in the basement, tucked behind some holiday decorations, and inside was a small black and white instruction manual with fading ink. "Automatic photo sensor, model 1954. And below that, my father's handwriting. "Original porch light. Works if rewired. Replace only if necessary." I stared at the page for a long time. Then I went online, found a small parts supplier 2 towns over, and ordered what I needed. 3 days later, I sat on the porch floor with my father's old screwdriver, the replacement bulb, and an old metal fixture that had been waiting longer than anyone realized. By sunset, the new old light was in place. I sat on the top step just to see, and at exactly the moment the shadows touched the edge of the driveway, it turned on. Like nothing had ever changed. Like the house had simply paused, and now remembered again. My kids noticed the next time they visited. "Whoa," said my son. "It came on by itself." "Of course," I said. "Can you teach ours to do that?" I nodded. "One day. We don't think about light until it's gone. Until we stumble. Or reach for it. But some lights live not just in the walls. They live in the rhythm of a place. They mark arrivals. They soften returns. They forgive lateness without a word. Now, I live in that house. My hands are older than I thought they'd be. The steps creak louder in the spring. But the light still comes on. Every night. Just before the mail truck finishes its route. Just before the radio station plays the evening weather. Just before the sky exhales. I still sit on the steps sometimes, the same ones where I once held a popsicle and watched the tar bubbles in summer. And when the bulb hums to life, not because I asked, but because it knew, I feel something settle. Something that doesn't need a name. My daughter never saw the original light. She was born years after we replaced it the first time, when motion sensors and digital timers had made the idea of a house thinking on its own seem quaint. She grew up in a world where lights turned on when you clapped, dimmed with your phone, or answered to your voice. But not the one on our porch. That one still came on the old way. Not with applause. Not with a command. But when the sky decided it was time. She'd ask me, sometimes, if the porch light had a name. I'd laugh. "No," I'd say. "But it has memory." I never explained what I meant. I didn't have to. By the time she was 10, she'd started watching it the way I used to. Casually. Almost by accident. Like you notice the sound of your own front gate, or the smell of someone baking 3 houses down. And one night, when we got back late from a school play, she stepped out of the car and looked up at it before saying anything else. "It's already on," she whispered. "Of course it is," I said. I caught her, once, showing a friend. They were on the porch, backpacks slouched against the rail, chewing gum and kicking their feet at the shadows. Then it happened. The light clicked on. They both looked up. Her friend said, "That's cool. Motion sensor?" And she shook her head. "Nope. It just knows." She's grown now. Lives 2 hours away in a brick house with shutters painted sea green. She has a light of her own. Not the same fixture. Not even the same shape. But she called me the day after they moved in. "There's a hook for a porch lamp," she said. "And I want one like yours." I knew what she meant. A light that's not smart. Just familiar. The kind that turns on not because it's told, but because it remembers when it should. I sent her the parts. Wrote a note on the box. "It will know what to do. Just install it right." She texted a photo a week later. Her new house at dusk. Lights spilling gently over the steps. Shadows curling around the edges of her welcome mat. Caption: "It works. Thought of you the second it turned on. I don't believe in ghosts. But I do believe in certain things staying. In habits outliving the hands that started them. In small gestures becoming rhythms. And rhythms becoming comfort. That light. It's outlived a few roofs. A handful of presidents. And more than one reason for being there. But it's still there. Because someone always chooses to keep it. Sometimes I imagine the house without it. Dark porch. Still air. Nothing to greet you as you step out of the car. It's not dramatic. Just colder. Less sure of itself. A house without memory. Last week, a boy from down the street came to sell me a fundraiser card for his baseball team. He was maybe 9, gap in his teeth, shoes untied. He waited at the bottom of the steps. Didn't ring the bell. Didn't knock. Just stood there. When I opened the door, he smiled shyly and said, "I didn't want to bother you. But the light was on, so I figured it was okay. I bought 2 cards. This is what the light does. It says now is a good time. It says someone's home. It says this place still knows you. And in a world where everything asks for passwords and updates and permissions, it asks for nothing. It simply turns on when it's needed. The bulb inside it isn't the original. It's been replaced more times than I can count. But the glow is the same. Soft. Golden. Patient. You don't rush to meet it. It waits for you. At night, before bed, I check it one last time. Sometimes from the top of the stairs. Sometimes from the window, curtains slightly open. Sometimes from the step itself, the way my father used to. It's always there. A small warmth. Like a whisper that doesn't need to be spoken aloud anymore. I keep a box near the back door now. It's small, battered cardboard with a crease down one side. Inside are 3 light bulbs, a spare fuse, and a yellowed note in my handwriting that reads, "For the porch. Always." It's not much of a system. But it's mine. I'm slower now. Not helpless. Just measured. The stairs take longer. So does remembering where I put my glasses. But the switch? I never forget that. Sometimes I catch myself checking it twice. Not because I doubt it, but because I still find something comforting about it. Like pulling the door tight even when it's already closed. Some nights, I don't sleep right away. I sit by the window with the curtains slightly open. Just enough to see the glow spill over the porch rail. It's not bright. It's not meant to be. But it's there. Like a low hum of presence. Like breath. I've never told my kids what to do with the house when I'm gone. I've left the usual things, documents and labeled folders, instructions for the plumbing, phone numbers for neighbors who still answer their landlines. But nothing about the porch. No formal request. No sentimental speech. Just the box. And the note. And I hope enough memory. Because here's the truth. That light was never just about seeing your way to the door. It was never just a clever trick of sensors or timing. It was rhythm. It was kindness. It was someone thinking of you, before you even arrived. In my life, I've had my share of joys and heartbreaks. Holidays. Homecomings. Quiet departures no one talked about much. But through it all, that small circle of light, the size of a dinner plate, no brighter than a whisper, remained constant. Even when the roof needed fixing. Even when the mailbox leaned. Even when grief settled in like dust you stopped noticing. The light stayed. I think what moves me most is that no one ever asked for it. Not once. It simply became part of what the house did. Like creaking in the winter. Or smelling like coffee on Sunday mornings. It knew when to turn on. And it did. No ceremony. No audience. Just because. I sometimes wonder how long it will stay lit after I'm gone. Maybe my daughter will keep it going. Maybe the new owners will replace it with something sleeker. Or maybe, one night, it will just go dark, and no one will notice until they fumble for the key in their pocket, and wish they'd left one more light on. I've made peace with that. But a part of me hopes. Just maybe. It stays. I imagine someone, years from now, coming home late, pulling into the drive with the window cracked just enough to smell the rain. They'll step out. Tired. Thinking of bills. Or an argument. Or a silence that's lasted too long. And then they'll see it. That light. Already on. Not waiting to be flipped. Not demanding attention. Just quietly saying, "Welcome. I knew you'd be here." That's all I ever wanted it to mean. Not, look at me. But, I see you. There's something holy about a light that burns in anticipation. Not of danger, but of return. A warmth without condition. No questions asked? No explanation needed. Just a glow. Soft as memory. Stubborn as love. I don't know how many more seasons I have. And I don't say that with sadness. I say it with gratitude. Because I've lived in a house that always remembered me. Because I had a father who understood the value of light. Because I have children who understand the value of ritual. And because when the dark came, in grief, in illness, in silence, I was never without that glow at my door. So if you ever pass by a house late at night, and you see a single porch light burning, maybe not the brightest, maybe a little old, maybe flickering once in a while, I hope you think of this story, and I hope you smile. Because maybe someone left it on for you. And if you have a light of your own, leave it on, just a little longer. You never know who might need it.